Magnus Carlsen is the best player in the world, so it's no surprise he constantly defeats top grandmasters without breaking a sweat. But everything changed when he faced this opponent. You see, when Magnus was playing against fans casually in this park, he did not expect to face the #1 female player, Judith Pulgar. Having achieved the Grandmaster title at only 15 years old, Pulgar had decades of experience under his belt. Magnus knew this wouldn't be an easy game, but trust me when I say it turned out far worse than he imagined. Judith starts with e4, and Magnus plays the Sicilian defense, an opening he is very familiar with. Both players develop their pieces, and it doesn't take long for Magnus to say something he's going to regret later.
Are you gonna play old school or the new one?
Sorry, I'm an old-timer.
You're an old-timer. It's disappointing.
And he's smiling. He thinks he's going to beat me.
Judith defends her center and long castles, allowing both players to start attacking with their pawns. They trade some minor pieces, and Pulgar closes the center with e5. What she didn't realize is that Magnus can now take the pawn on g4 because of the pin. Luckily for Judith, she still has some great counterplay and is ready to develop her rook. Magnus defends the pawn, but is simply delaying his defeat. It doesn't take long for Magnus to play rook c8. A big mistake! Judith sacrifices her bishop, exploiting the weak d7 pawn. After only a few more moves, Magnus Carlsen resigned. The whole game only lasted 19 moves, which goes to show that even top players like Magnus don't always play perfect moves. But this next match is even more shocking, because in this game against Boris Sechenko, Magnus would go on to make one of the most embarrassing mistakes in chess history. Magnus opens by moving his pawn to e4, and Boris quickly responds with c5, the Sicilian defense. After the first few moves are played, it becomes clear that Magnus wants to start an attack with f4. However, this doesn't scare Boris, who immediately moves his queen to a5, causing Magnus to consider his options for a while and then move his rook. In only a few more moves, Boris moves his knight to f6. A massive blunder which allows Magnus to retreat the knight and push the queen straight into a fork on b5. Boris knows he's messed up and realizes that the only chance he has is sacrificing his knight for a pawn, giving Magnus a completely winning position. After some more piece shuffling, Magnus offers a trade of queens, which Boris should not accept because trying to survive an endgame against Magnus is basically a death wish. Luckily for Magnus, Boris has no choice, and the players enter an endgame where Magnus has a huge advantage. Magnus plants his bishop on b6, and the players begin moving their kings to the center of the board. After thinking for a second, Sechenko moves his rook to b6, a tricky move that looks like a blunder on the surface. However, after the trade, Boris can promote his pawn to a queen. Magnus, knowing this, moves his rook out of the way, which allows Boris to win a pawn. While Magnus is up a knight, the position is still equal because of Boris's menacing pawns. Magnus offers a bishop trade, which Boris declines, putting pressure on Magnus's knight instead. Magnus reluctantly retreats the bishop, and they trade rooks. Some more moves are played, and Magnus gets closer and closer to his inevitable defeat. With both players low on time, the game could go either way, but after Magnus moves his king in line with his rook, he knows he's made a grave mistake. You see, official chess rules don't allow you to take back a move after you let go of the piece. This makes Magnus's move completely illegal, so his opponent told the arbiter immediately. Luckily, Magnus took the loss like a champ. Now, the last game is Magnus versus Richard Raport, a grandmaster with a peak rating of 2776, who thought it would be a good idea to play Magnus's signature move, arriving late and still winning convincingly. Being already a minute down in a rapid game, Raport stays composed, and the game quickly turns into an exchange Caro-Cane defense. Some more moves are played, and Raport pushes d5, which allows Magnus to give him an isolated pawn, which could become a weakness in the future. Magnus pins the knight and Raport blocks the threat. After thinking for a while, Magnus moves his bishop to b5 with check, which Raport quickly blocks with his bishop. As the opening transitions into the middle of the game, Magnus puts pressure on the isolated pawn and Raport aims to attack Magnus's king. They trade in the center and Magnus moves his knight to g5. A huge mistake! Raport quickly punishes him by counterattacking his queen and then playing queen to b5, a brilliant move. Although it looks like Magnus can take Raport's rook for free, doing so leads to a deflection tactic that Magnus does not want any part of. Magnus, sensing the danger, plays g3, but the end is near for Magnus. In only a few more moves, Raport gets a killer position where his queen and two rooks are ready to deliver the final blow. Magnus tries to defend, but before even allowing Raport to play his move, resigns. Do you think Magnus will finally stop arriving late after this one? I definitely don't.